Okay, so we are here taking a look at World Eater by Dead Rock Games, and I am joined by Soul. I'll drop a link to the game in the description there, and we can get started. So it's just a simple, like, click and drag. You can zoom in and out, and we're just trying to become the World Eater, but we have to start out small at first by chasing down these comets.
That is correct.
So yeah, do you want to start by just talking about your role on the project and your background in game development?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the coder, and me and my business partner AJ. He's a concept artist, and we started Dead Rock Games last year. It's a proper, ragtag indie studio. We're actually about to have our first release of the main game we've been working on, Intergalactic Battle Roosters, on Steam in November. So we're excited about that. We've been
Nice.
working on that for about a year and a half. It's our first game. As far as me, I am relatively new to the game industry. I've been a professional photographer for most of my adult career, and then after COVID, I realized it was time to make a change and got into coding, and then met AJ, who has quite a bit more experience in the industry. He's been a professional concept artist for his entire career, and is pretty well known in the art community. He's also had some pretty big gigs. He's worked at Blizzard and Riot, and some other large studios throughout his career. But wanted to take a stab at the indie game, path, and so we started that, and then we decided that we needed just a little break from regular development, and we did GMTK for the first time last year, and thought it would be a great excuse to try some new ideas. And so we made World Eater, which is just basically, everyone's played those simple, games on the web where you go around and try to, eat things and get bigger and stay away from the bigger things that eat you. And we thought we would just put a simple spin on it. I'm a big science nerd, space nerd. I've put like 1,500 hours into Kerbal Space Program, and I just wanted to do something with a little bit of orbital mechanics.
Mhm.
And I thought that would be fun to code, and also with the issue of scaling. There were some fun problems to solve as you continue to get bigger and bigger. And as you'll see as you play through here, if you're able to get to it, initially you've got these planets, and that white kind of circle around them is their gravity well. But once you
Okay.
get bigger, those planets no longer really impact you, and there's larger bodies whose gravity like will switch and then start to impact you. And so as you scale, the things that you have to worry about scale with you, and it was kind of fun idea to work on. So anyway, yeah, that's a little bit about me and us and what we made for GMTK.
Yeah, nice. I mean, I think you ended up sort of like touching upon the inspiration behind the game, which I would have asked about anyway. And then I guess the like, was there anything specific, perhaps as an inspiration behind the aesthetic that we're seeing into this game? Because it is a very striking aesthetic.
Um, yeah, we when we started, we the game that we did last year for GMTK was one of those where game jams are great because it really starts to amplify the cracks in your process, right? And if there's anything that you have an issue with, it just cranks it up to 11. And so we wanted to have a really polished game for this entry. So we kept the mechanics and the gameplay simple so that we could focus on doing that. And I explained the idea to AJ, and he got it right away and loved it. We had prototyped it very quickly at the beginning of the jam. And usually the way it works is like we'll pitch the idea, we'll kind of figure out the mechanics, and then AJ will just kind of go and do his thing. And so he started to toy around with some ideas and sent me some ideas for the planets. He made the planets, were one of the first things that he made, and I was like, oh yeah, this is sick. Let's keep it super minimal and just try to make this look as clean as possible. And one of our references was Mini Motorways. That's like a
Mhm.
very fun kind of puzzle indie game that's very minimal, but like it's very well done. And I used that kind of as an example when we started. I was like, dude, let's kind of keep it within this minimalistic vibe, and see if we can achieve that. And so that's, from that inspiration, I think he started to play with some things, and went from there. But any other deeper insight, you'd have to ask him. I don't
Yeah, yeah.
know. He works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, just the line work is really interesting, like very very distinctive, and yeah, just it's got a really neat style to it. So I wasn't sure if you happen to know where that's coming from, but
Right, right, yeah. Yeah, no, that's it. I don't know where, we'd have to peer inside the mind of an artist, which could be a terrifying place at times.
certainly can be. Um, all right. Well, so do you want to talk a little bit about the actual development process? Because you mentioned you'd wanted to sort of like keep things simple this time around.
Yeah, actually, we tried something new. Anytime we do a game jam, like as a team, we usually try to set out a specific goal that we want to do for that game jam. And this time around, like I mentioned, we wanted to make sure that whatever we submitted felt polished and felt like a complete experience. So that was kind of our goal. But one of the things that ended up happening is usually the way that we do it, and I guess a lot of teams probably work similarly, is we just brainstormed a bunch of ideas.
Mhm.
And anytime we've done some game jams in the past, we go that route and we'll brainstorm a bunch of ideas. We'll narrow it down to like 3 or 4 and then kind of talk about it and go from there. And then we'll pick one and then just start building that game, right? This time we narrowed it down to 4 ideas. We picked the top two and we said, let's break off. Let's make a couple quick prototypes, like time box it, give ourselves like an hour,
Mm.
make a very quick prototype, see if these mechanics actually feel fun, and then make our decision from there. And we made 2 prototypes of our top 2 picks, and neither of them felt good. We were just like, dude, this is not awesome. Should we like keep grinding on this, or maybe like go down to the next ideas? And so we were like, yeah, let's scrap this. Let's go to ideas like 3 and 4.
Mhm.
We prototyped those, and this was one of those. And we both played it and were immediately like, yeah, this is the game. This is the one that we should do. So that was kind of new for us and very insightful. Kind of like we are huge believers that play tests are king. Like listen to your play tests. For us as an indie studio, we don't have a boss. It's just us. But we always say that the play test is our boss. Like we
Yeah.
listen to what the play test tells us, and then we go from there. So we did that this time in the game jam, and we think it worked out pretty well. Um, you know, as far as like what we wanted to accomplish, I think we hit our targets. We're very pleased. And yeah, I think it was a decent process and a pretty insightful lesson that we learned.
No, I'm glad that the longer time period of the jam allowed you to have that flexibility and enable the opportunity to find the prototype that you felt more strongly about. Oh no, I ran out of time. Um, do you find that like how far do people usually get in this game?
We have, again, so I realized an error. Anyone that makes games understands that you got to respect frame independence. And I had done that for the player drag movement and for like the orbiting mechanics of the moons around the planets. But for the gravity, I forgot. It was a noob mistake. And I realized I played on another computer like Tuesday morning and realized it was running at 144 FPS and the gravity was brutal. And I was like, oh dear God, I've made a huge mistake. So I was scrambling to try to fix it. I couldn't get it sorted in a clean way before, so we just had to submit. But people have said like, "Hey, this feels really hard," and I think some of that feedback that we got was maybe due to that. But then we've gotten a lot of other feedback that was pretty positive. And people said it was a very enjoyable experience. They enjoyed the art and the music specifically. And so yeah, I think that feels pretty good. And on the music, actually, this is a shout out to just GMTK and the Discord. We found the guy that did our music. He kind of posted it in one of the channels where it was like looking for team or whatever it was called. And I saw his post, and he had shared like a YouTube link with some of his stuff, and I was like, oh dang, this is pretty good. This might fit our game well. And so I hopped in a call with him and had him play the prototype that we made. And, again, that prototype was useful as another tool. I didn't have to sit there and explain to him for 20 minutes, or, have him, read like a 10-page GDD. I just had him play the prototype for a couple minutes, and he got it immediately. He disappeared for a few hours and came back with the song. And I was like, wow, you're a magician, man. This is incredible. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
such a great experience. And I know, like, I've definitely been lucky to work with a couple of composers who have that kind of vibe where it just like immediately clicks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. really talented guy. Megumi, I think is how you say his name. It's in the description there. If anybody likes what he did, feel free to reach out to him on Discord. He's awesome.
Yeah, the music is it's a very like subtle textured tone. I've actually like turned it up just a little bit so that hopefully that it's partially audible. I am playing on a monitor that is only capped to 60 frames per second, by the way. So
Great.
I'm at least having the intended experience, even if I'm not having the easiest time with it necessarily.
Yeah, I started to joke that if you're playing at a higher FPS, you're just playing on Dark Souls mode. So, expect that level of difficulty.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't have one of those fancy high refresh rate monitors. No, don't crash. I'm gonna crash into the planet again. Okay.
Oh.
Um, so yeah, no, I again just sort of going back a little bit. I'm glad that you were able to kind of take the time to experiment with a few things before you settled on the idea that you ultimately ran with. And then once you settled on this idea, can you talk a little bit about like, was it just immediately launching into production on it, or did you iterate on the idea anymore after that point?
So yeah, for this game, we had the basic prototype. We got that's when AJ kind of went, he started to make some of the art assets. We plugged those in. We play tested a little bit more, and we found that there were a couple issues. One, the start of the game felt very slow because sometimes you would just float around with nothing going on for like 30 seconds. And so we were like, yeah, for a game jam game, people are going to click out of this in about 2 seconds if there isn't something immediately happening. And so AJ and I were talking, and AJ was like, why don't we have like comets just spawn in and fly towards the player kind of thing, or he said, let's have some comets, little things that just kick off right away no matter what. And it teaches the player right away what they're supposed to do in the game. I was like, yeah, that's great. So we put that in, and that immediately felt nice. But then even after that, you could be unlucky because the way that the world is created, it's all procedurally generated every run,
Mm-hmm.
and where you start is random. And sometimes you would just happen to start in an area that was very sparse. And so that also didn't feel that great. So we play tested some more. And then right now, there are always two static planets that spawn to the left and right of you.
Mm-hmm.
I could have done ones that spawn, up and down from you too. But since it's kind of like, I feel like most people are more inclined to go left and right. You can just see farther left and right. You
Yeah.
might feel more comfortable going that direction. And that seemed to, nail it, at least for the game jam, well enough. I think if we continue to polish this, we'll add some fancier solutions. Yeah, so that was basically it. Some of the things that we ran into later on was once you start to eat planets, and then we didn't have gas giants initially. And so AJ had the idea of making the gas giants kind of these larger objects that when you're small, you can actually kind of traverse through if you're skilled enough. But then once you're large, you're like eating them, and it helps give that sense of scale and progression if you happen to have that playthrough where you're like, oh wow, that's so cool. I was just flying through that gas giant, 2 minutes ago, and now I'm eating it. I can
Mm-hmm.
feel that I'm getting bigger, and stronger. Yeah, so and then after that, it was just a lot of polish. We really wanted to keep the UI minimal. I really hate having to code UI stuff. It's like the thing I hate the most about anything game dev. So we kept the UI minimal. Yeah, the one thing I will say is we didn't truly get to like the end phase, and I don't want to spoil it depending on how far you go, but
Mm-hmm.
we had like a level up, from where you can eat now, which AJ made this cool art of like a god. You could go to like, this larger plane of existence where you're like eating gods or something. I don't know, but basically the gameplay mechanics don't change much as you play through the game. It's just one of those dopamine hit kind of satisfying games that you play for a little bit and enjoy eating things and getting bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the core loop works quite well. I mean, I really like the idea as you were describing of like the sort of eventually becoming larger than the gas giants that you flew through. Like, I think that it's a bit up to chance if players end up experiencing that, right?
For sure. Yeah. And again, that's one of those things for a game like this. It's funny where you get into like random spawns and procedurally generated stuff. You don't get to experience everything, potentially on even a few playthroughs. But the off chance that some players get to experience that, it's like that's a cool thing that they got to experience that isn't just scripted or that everyone gets to do. And so, yeah, I think that's okay. I think that's all right. Oh,
It's that super heavy gravity kicking in.
yeah, and then that's the other kind of brutal thing was that the gravity does get more severe depending on the size of the object and your current size. So if you're really small and there's a large object near you, it will pull you in more severely than if you were a little bit bigger, which can make it difficult to deal with.
I know that you mentioned Kerbal Space Program as a like somewhat partial inspiration, or um, did you try in any way to work with the concept of like a gravity assist fling?
Yeah, so that was part of the reason with when I mentioned earlier that there was an issue with the frame rate in the gravity
Mhm.
code. I definitely overcooked the grav. I mean, I've since gone through and changed it. I've been tinkering with it since the submission. Um, but that is one aspect that I really wanted to be able to feel. And as I took like a standard formula for how gravity actually works, right?
Right.
Like Newtonian gravity, and like I applied that to the game, and actually in this game, the gameplay it felt too weak, like further away from the planet, but way too strong as you got close to it.
Mhm.
But I think that's what you need in order to do something like that. So I feel like I would need to tinker a little bit more with how the player input actually works. Because right now you click and drag, like if you're going one direction and you click and drag the opposite direction, you just go that direction. It's not like how movement works in actual space.
Yeah.
So I think it could be interesting to maybe do something like a spacecraft where you click and hold in a direction and you're just thrusting in that vector. And I think you might be able to do more interesting things with like gravity assist, maybe if with controls that worked like that. I'm not sure. I definitely have to play around with it more. There's like a very interesting balance as to what the player is allowed to control and how the gravity impacts you to pull something like that off, I feel. Or I'm also, I could just be missing something that's right in front of my face. There's probably some simple solution to this. I don't know.
Mhm. Well, what's the game actually made with?
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you asked. So we use Construct 3.
Aha.
Yeah, this is a lot of people haven't even heard of it. But it's a small engine that is deceptively powerful. I have never messed with Unity. AJ really likes Unreal for 3D projects. But I've been wanting to hop into Godot for a while, and we kind of are like after our next project is done, I'll probably experiment with that some because I feel like from what I've seen and read, we went to GDC this year as well, and Godot had a big booth set up, and I was stopped by there and talked to some of them, and they had some of the developers that had made games in Godot, and spoke with some of them, and people just love that. It's like a cult following at this point. Like they really love that engine. So I feel like I'm missing out if I don't at least check it out. But Construct is very solid for what it is. And if you want to make a 2D game and you want to be able to prototype things extremely quickly, it's really awesome. And for those that don't know, Construct also has like a kind of like a visual scripting, kind of like a blueprints thing. That's kind of like their bread and butter. And so like AJ can code like a little bit, but when he can make prototypes very quickly just using they're called like event sheets, and he can just whip things up in there to like just show me an idea he has or for us to quickly play test something, and it's so powerful to be able to do that. And then if you need to, you can just it's otherwise JavaScript based, and you can do just about anything you want to with JavaScript. So feels pretty good. Obviously there's some limitations there if you want to get into you know more specific things with memory management or even offloading stuff to the GPU, it can get a little bit more challenging with JavaScript. But otherwise, for a game like this, and especially for a game jams, it's
Mhm.
awesome. I love it. Yeah, shout out to Construct for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny because the way you're describing it is how I used to feel about Game Maker. Game Maker used to be like super easy to get a handle on, and I feel like they lost a little bit of that when they moved to the newest version, like GameMaker 2023, 2024. Like they stopped numbering it, so it's just called GameMaker now, which is kind of a little ambiguous. But
Right.
yeah, no, I've heard a lot of positive things about Construct. I've heard a lot of positive things about Godot, but I think as you say, it's good to highlight the strength of it as something that you use to make prototypes, and then the actual like more production, like the game that you're coming out to Steam, the game that you're working on that's coming out to Steam. What's that made in?
That is also made in Construct.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, believe it or not. And there's quite a few games that get released at a production level that are coded in JavaScript. It's got like Vampire Survivors was a JavaScript game. Like you know what I mean? Like it's kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, you can definitely make production level games with Construct. What I wanted to see is just because again, I think it's like people can attach themselves to a brand, right? And so sometimes people are just like, oh, Godot or die. It's like maybe, but maybe it's not the best tool for the project you're working on. And I think that's also smart to consider. And so for me, I just don't know enough about it. And Godot seems like a very worthwhile quest to go and spend some time on. Like I mentioned, the game that we're launching in November. I think after we're done with that, I'll probably take some time in January. We'll probably game jam with whatever's going on in January and just use that as an excuse to dip into Godot and really try to build something with it. But then once I understand what's going on there, then I'll know, like, okay, is this the right tool for what I want to do? Yes or no. And yeah, I think that's the best way to go about most of these things. Most stuff in life, right? It's just everything's a tool. It's just when you use it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that there's probably like going to be like a Ludum Dare sometime around there in the winter.
Oh,
So-
cool. I've never done that one, but I've heard good things. Very popular.
Yeah. I'd say like Ludum Dare and GMTK are a couple of the most popular gems. And of course, there are smaller ones. Like it depends on what you want out of a jam. I know lots of people have preferences for like, if you want an entire month to work on something, then there's the GitHub like Game Off jam, and other smaller, shorter, like couple hour jams. But
Right.
so one thing that I would have loved to see in this game is just a more clear way of knowing exactly like whether I'm big enough to eat something smaller, because there's definitely a few times where I've run into like, ooh, I don't know, maybe it's because of the kind of shaky outline on the object. I don't necessarily know if I'm bigger than something, and then sure enough, and I was like, oh, okay, I do still eat it.
Yeah, that could be good. I would. Yeah, again, I'm glad that you brought this up because this is kind of how we talk about ideas. It's like, should we do this or not do this? And our answer is always, let's put it in and play test it. You put it in. Does it feel good? Does it make the game too easy? Is it a nicer thing for the player? Just put it in. We'll see. The playtest knows all. we will know immediately. So yeah, why not? Put that in there and then see if that helps. And if it takes away any of the drama of the risk reward of just trying to eyeball it and see if you're right or not. But yeah.
Just because I have come across a few other games from this specific jam that have done this, same idea of being big thing, eating smaller things, and
Right.
some of them have had that feature, some of them haven't. But I think that it's like in the case of comparing circles, it's not that hard. But in
Right.
some cases, it's a little more tricky to eyeball, and I really do appreciate having that feature. Okay, let's see. I think I'm big enough to eat the star now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is part of the kind of the end game here where it got, the movement's very slow, unfortunately, so it doesn't feel super good. And then yeah, now you're just kind of at the point where, you can eat as much as you like and there's not too much else to worry about.
Okay, so this is basically at this point just a like go as long as you can, as long as the timer lasts, sort of thing.
Like, yeah, high score, get as much stuff as you can, see what your stats are at the end, kind of thing. And this is the part of the game where I think like there could be really like we had one idea where once you eat your first star, like everything inverts in color.
Mm,
And then and now all of a sudden there's these like huge beings or whatever that have been watching you, and it kind of reaches like a to really reward the player with like sticking it out and seeing what else we've done. um right now this feels kind of like a lame ending, if I'm being honest, but otherwise that's so goes the life of the game jam.
yeah, yeah.
There's never enough time.
So just catching up on some comments in chat here. So I mentioned Ludum Dare. Apparently, next one's in early October. I think at one point they were trying to do 3 Ludum Dares a year, but they've switched back to just 2, which I think is best. Just keep it a little more focused. So they're not exactly on opposite ends of the year, or maybe they are. I'd have to look, but yeah. So maybe you'll end up missing that one. But yeah, there's the Brackeys Jam. That one's also pretty big. And then there's the question of, is the end goal of this game to become a singularity? And it seems like maybe that was on the table at one point, but star is the highest you can go currently, right?
Yeah. So there you go, 19.67 gigameters.
Yeah, that is beyond the. Oh, you know what? I think solar masses might have been. I don't know. I
Yeah,
assume.
that's a smarter way. I was googling, units to use. That made sense, and I just gigameter came up, and I just thought that sounded cool, even though I don't, mentally I have no idea what that means or looks like.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's like 10
that's
times watt
awesome.
power.
I think it's 1,000,000 kilometers.
Oh my god.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, or maybe 1,000,000 meters. I don't know. Yeah, again, it's big.
All right. So then I know that you mentioned like tweaking the gravity formula a little bit, but do you have any formal plans for like a post-gen version of this, or even just like a couple tweaks here and there that you'd like to get in before moving on?
Actually, yeah, 100%. We got such great feedback from players that kind of really enjoyed the chill gameplay and whatnot that I think we are gonna spend some time to really polish this up, give it a proper end game, add a bit more content and whatnot, and then yeah, we were even thinking of releasing this on Steam or something, just as a kind of a chill, relaxing uh, cozy orbital mechanics minimalist game. I don't know.
Mhm.
But yeah, a lot of people seem to enjoy it, and so yeah, I think we will explore expanding on this idea a little bit more and see what comes of it, and go from there. I also think this would be pretty fun on mobile. Something I could see people just chilling on this, playing a few rounds before bed or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess what you'd want to look at is if you're thinking about the loop of like how long an experience like this lasts, um, you can spend quite a bit of time getting pretty far and then you succumb to the forces of gravity and have to start all over. Like, how long do you think is an ideal period for a gameplay session to last before the player necessarily has to like, oh, if they lose and have to start all over, do they lose the motivation then to continue playing?
Yeah, that's a that's a great point, because since there isn't any kind of like profile level progression, that feels kind of bad, and that might be something that helps maintain the interest in the loop. Is any kind of simple unlock system, like whether we could add a score system, or maybe once you get to the point where you eat your first moon, you unlock something planet, gas giant, star, and then it could be score based after that. Any number of things, and whether they're just cosmetic or you can actually change. I think it could be kind of fun. This game feels like to me it could also lend itself to some sandbox mechanics. So maybe just having a menu where players can mess around with the variables, like, oh, what if gravity is like this, or what if I can shoot myself this at this strength, or whatever it might be. Just some silly stuff to toy around with could be fun. But just yeah, top of my brain ideas to answer that question is what I would guess to keep players engaged. Because you're right, after you've done it, especially after you've eaten everything, why play it again? You've done the thing. You know what it is. So that's a great question.
I mean, I'm wondering, like, does the player itself have gravity?
So that's something I wanted to toy with because it
Mhm.
would be really great as you got bigger to just start sucking things into you. Like that would be really rad. And so again, that's another thing that we could play with as well because it doesn't make too much sense that you're huge and don't impact anything around you in a
Mhm.
game that is showcasing, gravity as its main material.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I was thinking about it in terms of like maybe that could be something that you get as a sort of meta progression, like the by unlocking more, you're sort of like increasing your density, and then when you go to like go back to playing the game on subsequent playthroughs, then maybe you have just sort of a cached value that refers to your density and how far you sort of like pull things towards you. It kind of like expedites the play experience because I'm sure this is inspired by as you might have seen. I was spinning around this planet, really going after the moons for like many iterations in a row, and I got so many near misses. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, having a density modifier would be really fun. That could be really awesome because if you think about that, we could also play with that with the things that you eat. But anyway, yeah, that's a great idea for meta progression as well. I like that idea a lot because that's one of the things I noticed when playtesting. Like you get a very near miss, and you're like, "Come on, man, just like let me get the thing. This is ridiculous."
Do you do you have a plan? Like, I guess I should ask actually. The obviously not the distances between things, but are the scales of things relatively accurate?
Compared to real life,
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
No, not at all. And it's weird too, I think, because when we think about real life, if you were to look at like just a 2D image of like Jupiter and the sun,
Mhm.
Jupiter looks relatively like big compared to the sun, but in 3D, when you start to take volume into account,
Yeah.
it's nothing compared to the
Right.
sun. And
Yeah.
that's hard to translate to a 2D game. So yeah, that's another thing that like is weird to try and achieve with just a 2D game. Um, but yeah, it's a funny thing to think about as well.
I guess it didn't seem like it was too far off to me, just in terms of my sort of classic model of the solar system is like if the Earth was a pea, then Jupiter would be an orange and the Sun would be a beach ball. And it seemed
Right.
like, oh, you got some planets that I could maybe the planets to gas giants is not quite like they're not drastically off in terms of like a order of magnitude kind of sizing. At least that's how it felt. That's why I was curious.
Yeah.
That's why I asked.
Well, what's funny is that if you think about eating all of the rocky planets, I think
Yeah.
if you combined all of their masses, you still wouldn't be able to eat a gas giant,
No.
right? So for gameplay reasons, we're not able to do that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's actually how I scaled everything based on about the time you eat your first planet. Maybe you've got to eat like eight or 10 more planets before you can get your first giant, and then kind of scale up from there. That's how like the scaling had worked. So it's funny that you say it like this. The sizing looks almost okay. Um, so there could be kind of like more in betweens to maybe have that work as such, but
Mhm.
yeah, not so much.
I did look it up, by the way. A gigameter is 10 to the 9.
Oh, there you go.
So,
That's
yeah.
that's a lot of zeros.
And then we've got I mean, the thing is, like, it wouldn't necessarily make sense to measure your size in terms of astronomical units because that's actively as Captain Fubar here says is the distance between the Earth and the Sun, and you're not necessarily becoming larger than a star, so you would still be some fraction of an astronomical unit.
What you said, yeah, what you said earlier, solar mass, isn't that how we actually do it? It's just like we compare things to the size of the sun
Yeah,
or
I mean,
other stars, right?
that's a measurement of weight, though, in terms of solar mass. Like
Okay.
you say, X thing is like this black hole is 10 million solar masses or something like that.
Right, right, right.
But I just thought it would be useful to have both metrics because you'd see how large you are, but mass and density are not. Sorry, volume and density are not necessarily correlated. Like you can have
At all.
something, yeah.
Yeah.
You could have
Yeah.
something that is like you're just absorbing gases and you're a very like large but sparse entity, or you could have something where you run into a neutron star, which is like really tiny, it's the
Right.
size of like a city, but it's also X many solar masses and has like crushing gravitational forces. It's like no imperfections greater than a millimeter in height, something insane like that.
That's actually a fun idea to make this a little bit more interesting because right now it's just based on visual size
Mhm.
and it doesn't take that into account. So like if you were huge, like a gas giant compared to a neutron star, the gas giant does not eat the neutron star, right? Like it,
Yeah.
it just gets crushed into the star. So it would be kind of cool to have densities play a role and then maybe use color or something else to show the player like, hey, this is small but very dangerous. You're not able to mess with that yet. That's an awesome idea. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you see those like awesome illustrations of a like a neutron star pulling mass off of a um another star that it was in a binary star system, and then it becomes like a type 1a supernova because it pulls off of enough gas off of it that it then um yeah there's a lot of like fun space visuals and such that I don't know. I listen to a lot of podcasts that talk about these kind of things, so
Yeah,
I
oh
love like
yeah.
astrophysics stuff.
That's awesome. It would also be kind of cool if we started instead of getting comments like if you started in like a supernova and you were just kind of collecting like nebulous gas to slowly grow over time, and like kind of carve a path through the gas to get bigger and bigger. That's another way that could be visually really pleasing and kind of just reward the player at the start. But anyway, yeah, a lot of ways you could take a game like this to kind of separate it from the other eater games out there and make it a really fun experience.
Yeah, and even a little bit of opportunity for tangential learning because when you're seeing the like
Yeah.
I love seeing those kind of moments come up in games. Um, so if anybody has any questions or comments they'd like to leave in chat, I think now would be the time to do so. But I know you already mentioned it. I'd like to give you the opportunity if you want to drop a link to that game that's coming out on Steam, the Astro Chicken. What was it?
Intergalactic Battle Roosters. Yeah, let me
Oh
yeah,
man, I got that
yes,
so wrong.
that's let me get the link here real quick. And yeah, thanks for letting me plug that.
And what kind of game is that?
This is gonna be your super arcadey, fast-paced, 2D shoot 'em up kind of game. Upgrades, killing enemies, boss fights, that whole kind of thing. The quick story is there's a shark who runs a taco shop. His name's Don, and some aliens stole his taco ingredients, and you got to go save the taco ingredients so he can keep making tacos. So he has employed the intergalactic battle roosters, which are an elite group of roosters that dispense justice across the galaxy. But so it's pretty fun. We mess with a lot of unique weapon ideas. So it's not just like it's not a lot of just like mini guns and missile launchers. We've got like a wrecking ball that you control it with your movement instead of shooting anything. And stuff like that. So anyway, I'm gonna link this in the chat now, and yeah, I would love it if you guys check it out. If it looks like your kind of game, you're able to wish list it. We'd appreciate that. And yeah, Gabriel, thanks a ton for having me on. This is awesome. Very, very enjoyable. First time I've been interviewed, so this is great.
Oh, nice. Yeah, well, I just wanted to show this off. This is a wow. Yeah, the art style is really wild here. So is it a bit more of like a bullet hell experience? Because it looks like you sort of got movement in all directions.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It definitely can be. A lot of these games are out here kind of in the same genre. People loved Vampire Survivors, but the thing that annoyed me with that game is you're just so slow, and I just wanted more of like a fast-paced arcadey kind of experience. And then even like our boss fights are kind of themed after fighting games.
Mm.
So there's like it's like kind of like a best of 3 rounds system, and if you win, like the next round, the boss has like an additional mechanic. So some games it's like if you're playing Diablo or WoW or something, the boss enrages at 25% health or something. We just kind of split that up into round-based combat, which feels pretty fun. So anyway, yeah, very arcadey, very fast-paced. If that's your kind of game, yeah, check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be
And we'll
happy
be
to.
in the yeah, we'll be in the October Steam Next Fest, so you'll be able to play a
Yes.
demo then as well. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I mean, if you'd like, I'd be happy to do another feature on the stream and like try out the demo, give thoughts and feedback at that time. We can
Oh,
talk about it.
I would absolutely love that. Yeah, absolutely. I will keep you I'll keep in touch. That would be very awesome. Thanks, man.
Sounds good. All right. Well, do you have a link to like the Dead Rock Games website or anything else you want to drop in chat before we wrap up?
No, yeah, mostly, yeah, just if you like it and wish list it, that helps a ton. And otherwise, yeah, that's kind of it. We have a Discord where we have, if you are into play testing or any kind of that thing, you could join our Discord. But other than that, yeah, we don't really have like a website up.
Okay.
It's just yeah, just this. So
Well, I'll link to the itch.io page at least. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on the stream and talking about World Eater. It's been yeah, visually super striking, even if the gameplay is a little on the familiar side, but super well execution, good execution overall.
awesome. Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate that. And
Great.
cool. Enjoy
Um,
playing the other games, and thanks
thank
for
you.
giving me the time, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one.
Cheers.